Good morning, good morning, good morning. What's up, brothers and sisters? I love you. I love you. You are loved. No questions asked. I hope everyone's doing well. Obviously, I'm Garland Nelson, and I wanted to just kind of come to you guys today with a little bit more of a kind of formed thought about a couple of things I was thinking about lately. So let me start the way I always do. By God's grace, we come before you today to say thank you for another day of life. I am so blessed as I'm coming to define it as all and above, good to evil, all wrapped up in one, and having the opportunity to change your life another day. Please continue to bless my family, keep them safe, keep them strong. Please be with my friends and family by extension, and let's help to make sure that we're all putting that positive energy into the ether so we can all move about our lives as graciously and as positive as we possibly can. So all these things I ask in your son's name, Jesus Christ, amen. Now that's how I roll. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's how you have to roll, but just as long as you believe in something greater than yourself. All right. So I'm starting to get more into my mind as to doing these messages slightly differently, not just ad hoc, just what's on my mind that morning, but just kind of putting a little bit more structure around these thoughts. And it might be a longer video than usual, but I just want to make sure that we can talk as a community. And I think ultimately what's troubling me is that the more we stay siloed, or the more we think, in fact, that my opinion has more weight than yours, the more we keep saying that we're authority figures, we're not really doing a good job with listening to the fact that every single one of us, all 8+ billion of us, have something to add into the conversation. We all have value. So the one thought that's been kind of pressing in my mind lately, and I wanted to open this up more to information sharing from each other, this exchange, a conversation, not a monologue, but a conversation of different opinions, different vibes, so we can kind of just really help to evolve ourselves. And so I'm going to set a couple of ground rules. I made a couple of notes. The first thing I want to make sure that I add to this thought process is all of the conversations in this G spot. I'll explain as we go over the upcoming weeks what that is. This G spot vibe that's about to go down is I want us to kind of approach all this as a charge of evolution and perspective sharing, not to be slamming, not to come from a perspective of deficit or being angry, so to speak, or make sure to trying to be corrective, like we're trying to fix people. Only thing we're trying to do is offer up the information that we can so we can evolve our way of thinking, because no man or woman or anyone else in between has the truth. We create a shared truth by being a community. So that's one. I want to also make sure that this is not being stated from a perspective of machismo or abundant over masculinity. Which is part of what I'm going to talk about today, because I think that's important to note too. Is not just, I'm not sitting here as some authority figure man saying, hey, follow me down the ravine because I got it going on. Even that has a committee-like capacity. So part of what my conversation is today, as you see from the title, is called Men, What Are We? And I know Scott Galloway is a celebrated author and podcaster out in the world right now, has been basically going around talking about what's been going on with men, young boys, the development and stuff of that due to changing roles and how we need to reclaim that back. I'm not going to do a deep dive. I might do that a little bit later. He's a phenomenal podcaster, great thoughts, great stuff to think about. But this is more about us having a conversation about what are we men? And the reason why I had this thought had more to do with what I am. I am a father. I am a father of a strong-willed daughter. I'm also a man who was raised by a significant portion of very strong women. Strong, as I define it as being, is that women doing what they have to do to hold their family down, regardless of what is going on with their male counterparts. So that's the strong part. And especially because my mom in particular, who my father was called home when I was 15, she had to hold down the family too, through the whole, do or die Bed-Stuy, Crown Heights vibe where shit was live, so my mom had to just hold it down for all of us. And also being a partner to a very successful woman who is doing very well for herself, who does not need me, operates independently, but also is sharing in a partnership with me. So when I think about that has made me think a lot about what our roles as a whole global community, what's going on with us as men? How are we defining ourselves when we are now sharing the responsibilities? For years, we used to think that we had to be the primary breadwinners. We're the ones that have to protect the family. And although these parts may have lines of truth to them, a lot of things have been changing. And it's been changing for the better when we talk about our women being uplifted. For those who claim to be men or women, by the way, I'm not getting into the minutia with that, but I want to make sure I stay 30,000 feet. I don't want to redefine people based on biology. I want to make sure that those who claim to be in their own spaces, that they get the opportunity to say, hey, I'm a man or a woman. And what the hell does that mean? Even that statement I just made is a redefinition of how we've approached things. So, I think what's important for me is that how do we manifest this new changing role? And I think sometimes as young boys growing up, we think that we can watch TV, we can look at the movies, we can listen to the music, that's where we glean our definitions from. But we forget to consult with other men and boys about how they want to be defined. And when you put that in the vibe of the upliftment of women, like I said, I was raised by women. I have an amazing partner. My daughter is off the chain. Now I want her to be equally as strong, to make crazy dough, to be not being controlled by any other person, whether it be male or female, depending on which direction you see decides to slide or not, is that I want them all to really have their own autonomy. And how do we as men find that little kernel of definition for ourselves? And that also slides into areas of the bedroom. For many, many years, if you listen to the songs, again, I sing a lot of it. I know it was a funny thing. I remember a little thing with Luther Vandross when before he came out, he was interviewed on Arsenio Hall show. And Arsenio had to ask him the question, which I thought was like the dopest shit imaginable. He said, Luther, when we're with our significant others, we will throw your music on to kind of get us in the mood. So I'm just curious, when you were with your significant other, who do you play? And Luther paused and said, shit, I put on my own music. And I started dying. I remember rolling off the couch. It was fucking awesome. But why that was so cool to me, because everyone was thinking that he was in a heterosexual relationship and not thinking he was talking as a gay guy. So even in that capacity, we have to start as men redefining how we see is the way to go. Is it all about our pleasure? Were we always ignoring what our partners, in this case of a heteronormative relationship, what women are supposed to feel? Are we supposed to ignore them and just think completely about us? I mean, these kinds of redefinitions definitely spawns questions. And this is where I think is important for myself. And I think if I'm thinking about it, other men are also thinking about it. So how do we create support in the context of helping each other redefine our roles? Are we typical heads of households? If you come in as a Christian man, are we still supposed to kind of lead with an iron fist? Or how do we share that responsibility? Are women now supposed to subject ourselves to what we think as authority, as they follow us? Yes, these all can be right and they can all be wrong. But what it does, it lends the question, what are we? How do we define ourselves today? What do we do in order to share the load? And this is not just a man question. Because, again, my mom raised me from age 15 on. And although I may believe, and I'm making a comment, that no woman can teach a man how to be a man, they can definitely guide your ass through the process as what you should and should not be doing as they define being a man, which is important, and this is spawning the question. So, men, those who claim to be men, in the comments, what I would love for us to start doing is to start sharing how we come to define it, ways of lending support. Do you have podcasts or books that we can read, songs that we should listen to? How do we help create this community where we exchange real cogent information for the purposes of evolution? Not to be correct, not to be corrective, not to be in a space where you have to be right or wrong. How do we help each other raise up each other as men? I know that might sound kind of silly to say it, but these things are now dynamic. They're no longer static as they used to be, as we are now growing into this next phase of shared responsibility on this planet and to own it. Because I'm assuming none of us wants to put our women back in to be barefoot and pregnant. I'm assuming we don't want to do that. So given that women are making way more than men now that they still significantly get paid less than men in the workplace, how do we make sure that we continue to evolve our way of thinking? Also, I want to put out there to women, those who claim to be a woman in some way, shape, or form, offer up suggestions as to how do you define a man's role as being. But this is coming from a place of love, not correction, not trying to say that machismo is wrong, which it can be in times, of course, hint, hint. But how do we help to evolve our thinking? Because if we're a global community, this is the only way we do that. We need to talk. We need to put out in the universe perspectives that allow us to kind of pick and choose what we think will work for us based on our upbringing, based on our attachment styles, based on our love languages, and most importantly, our roles, our changing roles in the workplace, in the bedroom, and in the household. So my charge today with love, and to make sure you understand that this is a safe space. If you know how I get down, if you're listening to this, I'm all about making sure that we provide a safe space for us to share. Again, you can make it in the form of stories. You can be anonymous as much as you can in social media, or you can go for fire, but understand that fire often begets more fire. So if we can figure out a way of sharing and helping each other evolve our thinking, this is the only way we can find true happiness and peace, by evolving our community accordingly. So I love you, as I always like to do before signing off. Do unto others as you want done unto yourselves. Matthew and Isaiah, this is wrapped up in my entire way of being. I am a man still trying to figure it out as well. I mean, I literally, to share some context to it, is like, even as a man raising a young daughter, we know that I am a model for what she is going to see as a man later. And I tried my damnness to do the best that I can. I'm not going to be right. But I'm not going to be wrong all the time. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do. But that doesn't necessarily make you a man. It just makes you human. But as I'm trying to evolve my manhood, even as someone who's 51, I have to understand that this is a process that requires community. And as I lean out to you, this is my way of getting out of my own silo of thinking I have the right way. I don't have to be Uberman, be like grabbing my Johnson like on Michael Jackson. I have question marks, I have fears, I have doubts like everyone else. And as a man with changing roles, that's coming out a lot more. So here it is. Community, in the comments, please share your thoughts, share your ideas, share your resources in terms of the ability to talk about it. And also, hashtag mission-based living. You're going to see a lot of that in everything that I do now, because this is about a personal testimony and a mission that I'm now embarking on in spades. Hashtag Ashy Feet G, hashtag The Soulist, hashtag G Morning Soulist. In either case, share your thoughts share what your fears are, share what you can, as much as you can, respectfully, and people respond to their comments with love and grace, because none of us, and I repeat, none of us has a monopoly on the truth. So let's work together, share in this global community, and I'm so blessed that you took the time to even listen to what I am saying today. Thank you. Thank you. I love you. I love you. You are loved. This is an ongoing conversation. It's not a definitive thing. So please enjoy. And I'll speak to you guys next week on the G Spot. I'll explain more about that as the weeks go on. Peace. Yo, what's up? Every Thursday night in January of 2026, join your brother Garland Nelson Soulist at the Diamond Club Grill at the Embassy Suites in Saratoga from 6:30 to 9:30 and beyond. You never know what the hell is going to happen. It's a great time ahead. All soul, all the time. Bring your crew. It is actually family friendly. And have fun. Peace.